Hello.
Hello, John?
Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Izzy from MMA Jam Live. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's a tremendous honor having you on. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us here for a couple of minutes.
I appreciate you guys having me. Sorry I had to bail a couple weeks ago. It got a little dicey after that weigh-in, but no, it's good to be with you guys. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. I'll be completely honest. I was probably a nervous wreck by then, so it probably worked out for the best. And before we get started, I just wanted to let you know I've been a huge fan of yours since your ESPN days. I live on the East Coast, South Florida, and I literally would stay up until 2:00 in the morning just waiting for MMA Live to come on because that's exactly what time it would come on here. And I'd stay up until 2:30, 3 o'clock sometimes just waiting for my fix of MMA Live.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Unfortunately, we were never really able to improve upon that time slot like we thought we would there, but thank you for that. You know, that show was a special project, for a lot of us, and, I'm glad that at least in some capacity it's still going strong, albeit, not having that weekly presence on ESPN2 the way it was, but thank you for saying that.
Definitely. And I have a question for you. Is the host, isn't he a WWE guy now, or is it different now? Would you happen to know that?
I mean, it mixed in a few different guys. I know Todd Grisham did come from the WWE. Max Bretos has been a guy who they've worked in the mix, and then a bunch of different people on the online side as well. So, but yeah, Todd definitely came from the WWE.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, at what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to be involved with the sport of mixed martial arts?
I hesitate to say that it happened by accident, but I did sort of fall into it a little bit. I was hosting a boxing radio show out of Boston for about 4 years, and we covered, I think, 20-some-odd HBO pay-per-views over that time, and we were in Las Vegas constantly. And at one point, Gary Shaw, who was launching Elite XC, and I've told this story many times at this point, so I hope I get it right, but he was launching Elite XC, and he invited a bunch of the boxing media and boxing radio shows to come take in that MMA event. For me, once I saw it live in person in 2007, the wheels started moving, and I sort of started thinking that this would be something that I would like to make a focus of my career, and then, got some lucky breaks. I auditioned for MMA Live and was able to land that hosting role, and, that led to the opportunity with the UFC. But boxing was definitely the inroad for me in terms of combat sports, and I know at times in the boxing media, back then, 2005 or so, we were a little bit defensive of boxing against mixed martial arts, and obviously I've fully embraced it now, and, it's my favorite sport in the world.
Definitely. And in terms of MMA, was there a particular fight that lured you in, or was it just the overall product?
I remember watching UFC 1 and UFC 2 back in the day and getting all excited about it when I was 14, 15 years old, but then I probably didn't watch again until UFC 50, so I can't really point to, the first season of The Ultimate Fighter or one fight here or there. I think what really sort of allowed me to turn the corner was, as I said, seeing it live in person. And of course, since I've had this job, I've seen some of the greatest fights in UFC history, and just feel very blessed to have the seat that I do. But I, really was more appreciating the sport live in person that, maybe at times for one reason or another it didn't do it for me on TV. And that's really what sort of turned the whole thing around.
That's pretty much, in terms of fandom, that's how I went about it. When UFC 1 went down, I was only about 7 years old, so I couldn't fully comprehend what it was that I was seeing. So after the first couple of shows, obviously I stopped watching because, I didn't know what was going on anyway. And then I came back around the time that Tito and Chuck was what brought me back, that whole big rivalry, and then the Ultimate Fighter and stuff like that. That's definitely what brought me back. But it's always hard to, like you said, it's hard to say, hey, this is what brought me back into the mix.
Yeah, now it's just, it's an obsession, it really is. I really do get excited for these prelims in Brazil that maybe aren't on TV, just because you just never know when that next star is going to emerge. And, there's so many circumstances in this sport with injuries that maybe delay UFC debuts, but I've had the privilege of calling a lot of UFC debuts over the last 2.5 years, and I'm excited about the talent we have and excited about where the sport's going.
Completely agree. And now you graduated, correct me if I'm wrong, but you graduated from Gettysburg College with a degree in political journalism, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now how close were you to pursuing a job in that particular field of study?
Well, I feel like I knew from a pretty young age, 16, 17 years old, that I wanted to work in sports. And I guess that political journalism major was really sort of a means to an end. I mean, I had a loose interest in politics, but, I sort of thought if I was going to go into politics, I really wanted to affect change and maybe actually be a politician, and I don't know if that would have been the right path for me. So, no, I mean, it was sort of a means to an end. I knew at a young age I wanted to be in sports. I was the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper and was constantly writing sports. I thought maybe I would be a print journalist, but shortly after starting newspaper work, I realized that was not at all what I wanted to do, laying out newspaper pages till 4 o'clock in the morning. So I went back to school to try to do the broadcasting thing, and as I said, was, fortunate to get a few breaks here or there that have led me to some pretty big doors, I guess.
Due to my own my own selfishness, I couldn't imagine you doing anything other than calling fights for the UFC. Like, that's just the selfish fan in me, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you saying that very much. I candidly didn't think that this opportunity would materialize as quickly as it did. I knew, God, I mean, 3 months into working on MMA Live, I sort of felt like I wanted to call UFC fights, but I didn't really say it too loudly. And it just so happened that when they were going to be expanding, my contract was coming up at ESPN, and a lot of it was right place, right time. And but Goldie and Rogan have been an institution, so if you thought for a second that I thought all of a sudden they were going to add a second broadcast team, having not added one for 10 plus years, I wasn't counting on it by any stretch. So it was certainly nice that it sort of was a perfect storm, and thank you for saying that, man. I don't take this job for granted. As I've said before, they can fire me after every show, and I don't take that lightly.
Oh yeah, beautifully said. Now you were hired by ESPN back in 2006 and spent about roughly 5 years there before moving on to the UFC. Ultimately, was that decision a difficult one to make?
Yeah, my wife's family's back in Connecticut, and I am from Boston, so my sister's still there, and my family's scattered on the East Coast. So from that standpoint, it was. But I really sort of wanted this job, and ESPN knew it, and they were very gracious in allowing me to have some play-by-play opportunities, especially so towards the time I was leaving, and really enjoyed doing college football and boxing for them. I just wanted to do more live events, and this job I felt sort of dovetailed better with my skill set. I never thought I would leave ESPN. I mean, that was always sort of the goal for me, not just with my New England roots, but just, the worldwide leaders. So I had always wanted to get to ESPN, and I never thought once I got there that I would leave. But it was a great, 6 years, and door certainly isn't closed for a return trip. But, I took this job with the UFC hoping I would do it for 20, 25 years and have it be my last job, and almost 3 years in. So we're getting there, I guess.
Absolutely. Now you actually did play-by-play for season 1 of Bellator, correct?
Yes.
Now, after obviously, years, several years went by before you landed the gig with the UFC. But at any point in between that time frame, did you wonder whether or not you'd be given the opportunity to call fights again?
Yeah, most definitely. And there was a time where I had to choose between ESPN and Bellator, and as everyone in my family can attest, there were a lot of different opinions, and there was a big part of me that wanted to, stay on the MMA train and leave ESPN to work for Bellator, but they weren't going to allow me to do both, so I had to make a decision. And yeah, certainly at the time I thought, I might have been closing the door, and, thankfully the UFC decided they wanted to take over the world, so they carved out a small place for me,
Now, as far as the move goes, like I've been in the military, so I've moved a couple of different places, and 5 years ago I moved from New York to South Florida. How did the move go? Was it something you adapted to well, or are you still adapting?
Oh, I love Las Vegas. I mean, if it was up to me entirely, I would, buy a house here and raise my 2 daughters here. I mean, the move was tough, just because it was cross country. We had a 3-month-old daughter at the time, and now we have, 2 daughters under 3. So it's a little crazy here, needless to say. I'm actually pleasantly surprised they haven't interrupted this interview with any noise. So, but yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely a challenge, but I had always sort of, visited LA and Vegas and sort of wanted to be on the Pacific time zone, and NFL football at 10 o'clock in the morning. I love to go out to eat, and this is the best restaurant city that I've found in the U.S. And, I love betting on sports. You can do that here legally. So this state has it all for me, man. I mean, I couldn't get out here fast enough. 300 days of sunshine. I cringe thinking about a potential, move back to snow at this point.
I'm actually the opposite, and I've been here. I've been in Florida for 5 years, and I still don't know if I like it, and I still wouldn't.
Whereabouts in South Florida are you?
I'm about 45 minutes southwest of Miami, in a small town called Homestead.
Okay.
Now, next question is, maybe I'm being a little bit biased, but one of my favorite movies is the movie Warrior, which you were part of. What did it mean to you to be part of such a film?
Well, first, I just want to say about the film, I thought it was a great movie, and I was so glad that Nick Nolte, got award consideration, rightfully so. I just felt like the movie didn't get enough credit for just being a really good movie. I mean, yeah, it was a touch long. Maybe some of the ground and pound scenes were a little bit over-dramatized, but I thought it was a great movie. I thought the characters were developed well. As I said, maybe some of the MMA stuff left a little bit to be desired, but I just am glad to hear you say that because I thought it was a great movie. As far as our few scenes, it was a crazy week. I actually got married 2 days after we shot the movie, so and at one point we were thinking, like, God, if this shoot, crosses into the honeymoon, do you, punt on the honeymoon? Because, I wanted that opportunity, obviously. But yeah, no, it was great. We had Gavin O'Connor and some of the cast there, and in about 90 minutes, we shot 6 scenes. I've never had so many wardrobe changes in my life, just doing quick news reads, to help advance the story at times. But it was really a thrill to be a part of it. And, I've actually heard rumblings that they did write a sequel and maybe even a third movie, but because the first one didn't have as much traction maybe as they would have liked, I guess that's on hold. But they did sort of leave it open-ended if you wanted to maybe take it somewhere,
I think that's one of the more ridiculous things. I think people focus on the fact that, hey, this is about MMA, and they don't see it for what it was. To me, like, yes, it was an MMA-related movie, but the focal point was on the story between the 2 brothers. And part of it, but I'm terrible with actors' names, but my favorite part and the one that stuck out to me, and it actually makes you tear up a little bit, was when the dad, he relapses and his son comes in getting ready to, say whatever, and he finally holds his father, and he, I guess all is forgiven. To me, that was one of the most powerful scenes that I've seen in any movie.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. That one was jerking a lot of us around, So it was great to be a part of it, and I hope people will, go out and see it if you haven't seen it yet, because it's worth your time.
I completely agree. Now, switching to the whole TRT situation. We recently saw that the Nevada State Athletic Commission and California State Athletic Commission announced a ban on TRT from the sport. What is your take on that ban?
My take's been pretty consistent throughout, and I sort of, again, I'm no doctor, and I might be ignorant when it comes to, Chael Sonnen's exact diagnosis, but I believe if you have hypergonadism and you need this treatment, that you shouldn't be allowed to compete in mixed martial arts. And, perhaps that statement, makes people think that would violate a labor law. I don't know. I just feel like it is sort of a way to sort of bend the rules. It's kind of a loophole. And even though I think there are people who have low testosterone at a younger age than maybe others do, maybe Dan Henderson or some of these guys who have low T, and need to treat it, I understand that, but I think it gets dicey when you're competing in a combat sport of this nature, when your levels are fluctuating, in terms of your T to E ratio during training camp. And, I don't know. I think it's something that now is where it needs to be, which is outside the sport of mixed martial arts. And, maybe some of these guys who were previously on it would be grandfathered in. I certainly wouldn't support that. I think you need as even a playing field as possible. And even though, I'm sure there are plenty of guys using a lot of different things, this was sort of legalized cheating, for lack of a better way to put it, and I'm glad that it's out of the game.
Now, as a follow-up question, do you feel like TRT, can we definitively say that TRT gives people an advantage?
Yeah, I think it does. I think maybe that advantage is more in terms of training and recovery. And, some people who take testosterone therapy, they never even get back to a normal level. So for those cases, I would say, no, it's not an advantage. They might have a testosterone level of, below 500, and they're trying to get to maybe somebody who's in a normal range that's 800 or 900 or whatever the exact number is. So I don't know. I guess I just feel like the elevated testosterone levels on fight night or otherwise is something that I have a problem with, that it being, so grossly above a normal region. When you're training and recovering and recovering, twice as fast and twice as well as a normal human being,
Now, the last question I have on the whole TRT thing, do you feel like the athletic commissions maybe were a little too hasty in dropping the hammer, or do you feel like maybe they should have given them let's say 6 months just for the heck of it?
I can see the merits of having a little bit of a grace period. I wouldn't have had a huge issue with that as opposed to just shutting it down completely. Obviously Dan Henderson's therapeutic use exemption for Brazil against Shogun Rua is still going to be held up. So I wouldn't have had a huge issue with that. Of course, there are a lot of people who say TRT really is just sort of a mask for other things that guys are doing, and I don't know what percentage of fighters in mixed martial arts are using something, but I would venture to say it is higher than maybe some casual fans would think. And so anything that can sort of, nip that in the bud and get us, on a cleaner path, I'm all for. And I guess I was surprised at how quick it went down, but I certainly am behind it,
Now, how influential do you believe the fans and media were to this decision? I mean, I'm not saying that the fans and media would directly influence the decision, but I feel like maybe they had a bit of a say in it. Is that a fair statement, or do you disagree?
Well, I think there's a combination of factors, and I think there was a groundswell of support of people who were against this, whether that was fans or media or people who are more powerful than fans and media, whether it's executives or people, who really are able to, get stuff done. So I wasn't somebody who was going out of my way to sort of credit fans or media unnecessarily, but you can be sure enough people got this issue on the radar of a lot of people that matter, and that certainly helped accelerate things. And again, I'm surprised we are where we're at, but I think a lot of fighters are very happy that there was resolution and it was swift.
Completely agree. Now, you made your UFC broadcast debut at UFC on FX, Gillard versus Miller. We often hear about fighters having octagon jitters. From a broadcasting standpoint, did that affect you as well?
Gosh, I'd have to go back and watch the tape to see if it affected me. I mean, I feel like when I'm not nervous or when I don't have at least some nerves, that's when there's a problem, And, sometimes, candidly, when we're in the studio, it's hard to get up as much as you get up when you're standing next to the octagon getting ready to do your opening on camera, So for me, it's almost, part of the battle is just trying to control my energy and not go crazy because I really am a fan and I get very excited when this stuff's going down, when I hear the music, like anybody else, But that first night, I don't know that there was any undue pressure on us, and as I think a lot of play-by-play guys would tell you, once the game starts or once the fight starts, all that stuff's out the window. So for me, I guess you just want to make sure that you nail that opening on camera and get sort of the beginning traffic and navigation out of the way, and then it's on to calling fights, which is what I love to do, and it's just a matter of reacting. So once the live sporting event is going strong, I think you get in a good groove. But yeah, that was a special night in Nashville, and you can be sure I was as focused as I could possibly be.
I definitely appreciate you saying that because, yeah, as I was in the beginning of this of the interview, I'm always nervous. It's something that just happens so naturally, but it's on the other hand, I'm like, that's when I'm most focused is when I'm nervous. So I guess I can use that to my advantage, as you obviously use as a fan yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have an edge, and, you just want to make sure you're not too tight. I mean, I did radio for many years, and it's just a different medium, It lends itself to being more casual, and believe me, with no makeup and no suits, I miss it every day.
Okay, now in the MMA community is basically, I mean, it's a huge community filled with passionate fans, both for you and against you. Now on January 20th, you just reached your 2-year mark with the UFC. How would you describe the overall reception to you as a UFC announcer?
I think it's been largely positive. I mean, certainly the approval rating was, I think, a lot lower that first night in Nashville than it is right now, and I'm very thankful for that increased support. I think a lot of broadcasters feel misunderstood, and I think a lot of people would be, surprised maybe to meet a different guy than they perceive in my, day-to-day life. But I feel these fans really let you know everything. And, I've had negative feedback. I've had constructive feedback. I've had overly positive feedback. I feel very embraced by the fan base as a whole. I like to joke that my approval rating is higher internationally than it is in the States. The U.S. fans can give me a hard time from time to time, but it comes with the territory. When I was doing college football games for, ESPN, I had, half of Rutgers University, wanting me to never call another Scarlet Knight game as long as I live, So it does come with the territory. I think, social media sort of makes it so that there's immediate access, and if you want to say something nasty, you can access me very easily. But, I don't block people on Twitter. I want to hear, people who don't like what I do, I want to hear from as much as people who do like what I do. So that's, been an adjustment, but it was something that Dana White prepared me for, as did other people on his staff. And, it's, I guess when you're in this business long enough, you become a little bit conditioned to it. I think any of the hate is probably harder for my family to hear than it is for me to hear,
Yeah, that I'm sorry to hear that. I know that's one of the things that people don't understand, is that your family is seeing that. Now, as far as, announcing goes, or reffing, or being a judge, anything we think about that is always going to be subjective. I mean, it's always in the eye of the beholder. I mean, there's going to be people that like you, and there's going to be people that don't think you do a good job, and that goes for being a referee and being a judge. And unfortunately, in that line of work, I mean, it's just going to be a day-to-day thing. It's going to be like, what did you give me at that point in time, not what you gave me before. Yeah, I mean, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and, when you do 7 hours of live TV, I mean, we just broke the record for octagon time in Brazil a couple weeks ago in Jaraguá, and it's like doing 3 football games, So if I say one or two things that a fan doesn't like over 7 hours, I'm okay with that, I mean, it's live TV, and there are times when I'll have an utterance and it's out there, and I wish I could pull it back, or it didn't come out as cleanly as you would like, but that's just the way it goes. And my confidence is not something that gets shaken too easily, and there's so many different elements that go into the broadcast, dealing with the producers, coordinating replays. I mean, there's so many parts of this broadcast. I'm one small part of this. There are times that I'm communicating with the truck that, people have no idea fires that are being put out on the fly, so I sleep well at night, and, I just try to get better with every show. And when I have, things that come up that the bosses don't like, I take them super seriously, but I love the job. It's, it's a constant learning curve, and, I think I will definitely die before I have a perfect broadcast, and I'm okay with that.
Wonderful, and that's, believe it or not, I'm going to use that as advice, because that was a very powerful statement you just made. Speaking of advice, I'm an aspiring journalist. I've been at it for about 2 years now. Can you offer up any advice at all to people like me that we can use to get to the next level?
Well, first of all, you sound good, man. You're professional, and, I think you're approaching everything the right way. I just always tell people to be ready at all times, and I guess that applies to fighting too. I think most of these guys in the UFC now, understand that they need to be able to accept a fight on 3 weeks' notice. And, if you got called in to host a major radio show tomorrow about mixed martial arts, you got to be ready to let it rip, and that for me has been the key, is that when I have had opportunities, I've been ready when it comes time to audition, and that is just the thing that I always tell people, especially in this performance-based industry, because your audition might be 2 minutes, and if you're ready to nail it and you're confident, then you get the job and then you're off and running. But it's hard. I remember once I sent out 300 radio demo tapes, and I think I got 2 calls back. One of those calls happened to be from ESPN Radio, in Bristol. So you just never know what is going to happen. So you just have to keep at it, and when that opportunity comes, take a shot of whiskey if you need to, but find a way to get through it and kill it,
Well, I truly, truly appreciate that advice, and I'll definitely use that to my advantage. Lastly, Jon, this is the last question. I couldn't let you out of here without talking about this. You were born in Boston, and I was born in the Bronx. What can we expect out of the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry this year?
Well, I can tell you from a Vegas perspective, they've set the total for both teams over under 87.5 wins. So I think the Yankees will have a bounce-back year, as they often do. I actually have loved their off-season. I know, if you can maybe not focus on the money, I love the New York off-season, and I think they're going to be back and a big threat. And, this is a hard championship to duplicate. But I got to tell you, man, as Red Sox fans, you know how much we all respect Mariano Rivera, and I would always say when I was hosting Afternoon Drive in Boston doing radio full-time that, there's going to come a time when Mariano Rivera is going to retire and the Red Sox will never have to deal with a Yankee closer as good. So what better way to send Mo out than to win a World Series championship? And I'm just hoping they don't convince him to come back in September because, I think his legacy is entrenched and he should go out the way he did.
First, I got to say, ouch, that hurt. Winning a World Series on Mo's last year, yep.
Well, but hey, I showered him with praise, though, in my lead-up at least, right?
You did. Yep, you did. In all fairness, you did. Now, Derek Jeter, this is his last year as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Nomar Garciaparra is the reason why I'm into Major League Baseball. When there was a time where it sort of got down, he just brought that whole city back up. So, I always have sort of had a love-hate relationship with Jeter because I've been a Nomar guy. But gosh, my sort of baseball life feels like it's been Derek Jeter's career, and he's, certainly. It's again, like Mariano, a hard guy not to like, and I just hope he can get through this season healthy. Part of me feels like he loves the game so much that if he thought he could get through this season healthy, he wouldn't have retired, or he wouldn't have announced his retirement before the season the way Mo did. If he felt like he could really get through 2014 healthy, he wouldn't have closed the book on 2015. So I hope for his sake and the Yankees' sake that he is healthy and able to, have a productive last season since, of course, all he's done for 2 decades is produce.
I sure hope so. And lastly, what kind of reception will Jacoby Ellsbury get at Fenway?
It's interesting because with a lot of these guys, with Johnny Damon and Jacoby Ellsbury, the Red Sox weren't going to give them the money. So, it's one thing for like when maybe Wade Boggs or even Kevin Youkilis. But again, Yuke's probably in there with Damon and with Jacoby. When the Yankees are offering the most money, it's hard to begrudge these guys. And so I hope Jacoby gets a good response. The Red Sox weren't going to offer him 75% of that, so he had to do it. Was right for his family, and I wouldn't be surprised if his Fenway response, maybe not the first at bat, but eventually reflects that.
Good point. I was expecting his second at bat for him to get maybe a standing ovation, not the first one. I think they're gonna boo the heck out of him, especially when I don't quite know when we play Boston. I know we open at Houston, and Boston might be after that, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, hopefully he'll be healthy for you guys. He wasn't always here.
I sure hope so. And with that said, Jon, I can't tell you how much I truly appreciate you taking time to chat with me. It means a lot to me, truly.
My absolute pleasure, man. Best of luck with the show, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you, Jon, and you have a wonderful weekend and enjoy the fight.
Thanks, man. You did the same.
Thank you, sir.